So for anyone who is unaware of Body and Mind, I will go through very quickly here. Let me just get, obviously disclaimer, I'll be talking about some forward-looking statements. If you want to read the disclaimer, feel free to go onto our website. Just a quick overview of Body and Mind. We started roughly 6 years ago, and we started in Nevada just as Nevada was going public or going medical, and received one of the first medical cultivation and production licenses in the state. We're also in Ohio, Arkansas, and California. I'll go into details in each of the states and some of the operations that we have there as well. Our vision is very simple, and I love the way some of the panelists in the last panel, really drilled down, and the vision needs to be simple. And we have been successful to date in identifying low-cost ways of getting into markets. Generally, that's been through winning license applications and then developing those licenses efficiently and getting those operations to cash flow positive model. We've also come into markets with acquisitions. Because we've got a deep bench of talent, because we've got a number of people who've been in this industry for a long time and have brought people from Colorado who have even more industry experience, we can take a look at acquisition opportunities. We can take a look at our own operations and optimize them, and we're continually doing that. And that's things like perpetual harvest. It's things like crossbreeding new strains to work into our cultivation systems. One of the things about being early entrants into new markets, and we were early entrants in Nevada when it opened, Ohio when it opened, and Arkansas when it opened, is you get into that market early. You get to know the players, you get to know the people, and it gives you some opportunities to understand good operations in these new states, people that you may want to work with in a partnership or a potential acquisition. And it also gives you some idea of people that you might not want to deal with. And I think if you go back and take a look at what we've done over the last few years and look at our presentations, we've executed on everything that we said that we would do. Sometimes it's a little bit late, but we have a good track record of execution. So I'll start in our home state, Nevada. Roughly 6 years ago, won the first one of the first cultivation and production licenses. That was as the state was going medical. And when you think about Nevada, sort of 10 years ago, it was a felony offense to have any possession of cannabis, any weight at all, even half a joint. And then roughly 6 years ago, they opened up as a medical only state, and I think there was less than 15,000 cards for the entire state. Very quickly, Nevada moved from medical to adult use. We were there, we were ready. We had been building our brand, getting good at cultivating, getting good at creating extracts, oils, and edibles during that medical phase, developed a really good following in the Nevada market. And we were really ready for adult use when it hit Las Vegas. And anybody who's been to Las Vegas over the past years has seen this normalization of cannabis. More signage, more acceptance, more people going into the various dispensaries. It's almost a bit of a microcosm for what's going on with normalization across North America. So, while we were building our brand in Nevada, we started looking at application opportunities in new states. And I'll get into that in just a sec. So our footprint in Nevada, we have a cultivation facility that's roughly 18,000 square feet. We just moved into a new production facility roughly a year ago. And that allowed us to take over new space in our original facility and basically turn all of that into flowering rooms. We've got a strong distribution network. We're probably in 80 or 90% of the dispensaries in Nevada. So one of those states that we looked at that was opening while Nevada was getting going was Ohio. And we liked Ohio because it's another limited license state. So in Ohio, there's roughly 11.5 million people. There are less than 70 dispensaries for the entire state. So as we were looking at states to apply for license for, it followed the Nevada limited license model. We liked it. We put an application in there with in-state partners who we've since bought out. We were probably one of the first dozen dispensaries to open. We're just outside of Cleveland, about 30 minutes outside of Cleveland. And we are about to open our production facility, which is right next door to the dispensary. So that gives us a retail footprint in the state. It also allows us to start bringing Body and Mind branded oils, extracts, and edibles into the Ohio market. So we're really looking forward to that. In California, we came into California with a acquisition, And we purchased 100% of a medical dispensary in Long Beach, which we've since upgraded to an adult use dispensary. And we purchased 60% of a license in San Diego. Now, again, going to that limited license concept, California is unlimited as far as the number of licenses sort of at a state level, but on a jurisdictional level, they really have limited them. And certainly San Diego is a great example of that. There's roughly 1.5 million people, and there's only 16 licenses in the San Diego city. So we really like those metrics. We built that dispensary out and we got it open just in time for COVID. So, we have a huge parking lot there. Instead of having a big party, we were buying plexiglass and clothing, masks and cleaning supplies. But we've really started to see improved traffic as things have opened up there. And we think it's going to be a great operation for us. I think one of the really interesting things that we've done over the years is really reach into our community and touch our customer and really develop a relationship with our customer. And you often will hear people talk about retail owning the customer, and I just think it's incredibly important for people, especially the canna curious, people who are potentially trying cannabis for the first time or maybe tried it a long time ago and are coming back to it, to have that education that a really good bud tender can give you. I think the stats out there are that if people sort of try cannabis and they have a bad experience, then there's a good chance that they may not come back ever again as a customer. So particularly for people who are really new to trying cannabis or using cannabis, having that connection with a great bud tender makes a ton of sense. Some of the other stuff that we do is we've had these cozy sesh concert series. Obviously, we haven't had those for the last year or so, where we'll bring DJs, and we'll bring bands, or sometimes we'll bring a number of brands into an area near the dispensary, and customers can either attend the shows or interact with the brands. And it's just a great way to build a strong relationship. One of the other things that we are really passionate about is community engagement. All our general managers, all our facilities have various opportunities to interact with the community. That can be donating money to local charities. It can be walking dogs. It can be picking up trash. We do beach cleanups. We just think it's important to have that connection to the community. And the last state that we're in is Arkansas. We opened a dispensary with our partners, Comprehensive Care Group, there last April. And we also built a small cultivation when we opened the dispensary. And we actually won Best Dispensary of the Year, voted by ARC20 last year in Arkansas. So great to get that award, great to get that open. And we started cultivating roughly a couple months ago. So we're just starting to see veg in what's going to turn into our first flowering in Arkansas. We're really looking forward to that. Let's give you an overview of select financials. These are the last 3 quarters that you can see on the screen. We have a fiscal year that ends July 31st. So this takes us to our last reported quarter, which is our fiscal Q2, which is January 31st, 2021. So you can see really strong revenue growth over the last 3 quarters. And I'll give you a bit more on metrics on the next slide here. So on balance sheet and financials, we have roughly 109 million shares outstanding, roughly 130 million shares fully diluted. We have no long-term debt, so we've managed to sort of keep that optionality. And our asset base is over $40 million right now. We've had two quarters. The past 2 quarters have been adjusted EBITDA positive, and we continue to see new revenues from these new operations that are coming online. Just give you a quick rundown of our leadership team. Myself, I'm the CEO. I've been in business for roughly 25 years. I worked for the Financial Post newspaper for roughly a decade. I've worked in tech. I've worked in manufacturing. I've worked in media. Trip Hoffman's our chief operating officer. He has a fantastic story about leaving the fund industry in Chicago and coming to Colorado, just as Colorado was starting to get going for recreational cannabis, and getting into that industry at an early stage, eventually using his skills. He's got a PhD in physics to really optimize not just cultivation, but dispensary operations. Ended up owning a cultivation and running dispensaries. I'm really fortunate to have him join our team several years ago. Dong Shim's our CFO. He's been CFO for a number of public companies, really deep understanding of the finances and understanding the pubco aspect of our business. Alexis Podesta is the past secretary. of housing, consumer affairs, and business for California. And her agency was responsible for moving cannabis in California from medical to adult use. So just a huge undertaking, and great to have that state moving, into or have moved into adult use here. And Brent Reuter is our director with us. He's been a banker. He's been involved in a number of M&A transactions, and has been a great resource for our board. Just a quick overview. Why Body and Mind? We've got near-term revenue growth from some of the operations that are opening soon. So I mentioned that we've got Ohio productions coming online. We've got Arkansas cultivation, which is in the veg stage right now. We are long-term debt-free. We have a tight capital structure with 109 million shares outstanding. If you look back and see how we've spent our money, we've been excellent stewards of capital. Product quality, I really didn't touch on this in the presentation, but I think we heard on the last panel how important that is. And it's not just, I think consistency really is important, but you want to have the product that people are coming into the dispensaries and asking for. Our flower in Nevada is sold before it's cut down. There's huge demand. And I think a lot of that is we came out of the gate early in that state and came out with a really high-end product, not just our flower, but our concentrates as well. And they're in demand. And I think that is just so key when you're trying to develop a strong brand. We do a lot of work on license applications, both in states that we're in and states that we're looking to get into. Some of them are limited license applications where there will be a limited number of winners. Some of them are in states that are open for license applications, but jurisdictionally challenged. Obviously, we have done well in the limited license environment. We certainly like that world. Our diversified assets, I think, set us apart from some of the single state operators. What we saw in COVID was that every state had a bit of a different reaction. And we felt that by being diversified, it really created a lot of opportunity for us. If you go back and look at our strategy and how we've laid out, what we're going to do, we have generally been on time or maybe a little bit late on most of the facilities that we've intended to open, and the milestones that we've created for ourselves. Proven track record, and a strong management team. And that's it. Patrick, if there's any questions out there, I'd be happy to answer them.
There are indeed. There are indeed, Michael. I've got a few minutes left here, and I want to roll through some of these. First off, I know this guy, Andrew Weiss, says, wow, that's a crazy stat. Ohio has a lot of opportunity. Now, I believe this, but he did say yesterday that I look like Ryan Reynolds. So, I mean, I don't know how much faith you can put in a guy who says that. But is there anything, Michael, that you want to say about Ohio and really the opportunity there for you guys?
Yeah, I think that, Ohio's it's just, it's sort of a state, you hear people talking about Michigan, you hear people talking about Pennsylvania. I think that certainly from the interactions that we've had with people over the last little bit, it's really getting on everyone's radar right now. And, Ohio, with that very limited number of dispensary licenses, there's also a very limited number of cultivation licenses, both what they call Tier 1, which are the large cultivation licenses, and Tier 2, which are the smaller cultivation licenses. Ohio is going to come out with another application process for dispensary license. And I got to tell you, as a CEO of a company with a dispensary, I looked at it and I was like, oh no. But the reality is that even when they, award all these new dispensary licenses, there's going to be something like 140 dispensaries for 11.5 million people. And the way we're seeing medical card applications come up, my guess is that by the time those new dispensaries come online, we'll probably have twice as much demand. So, what concerned me a lot is less of a concern. I think that we've been good operators in that state, and my hope would be that we can win another dispensary license or several dispensary licenses. But the other thing that Ohio's done that I think is just great is they've looked at putting them really sort of geographically limiting them, so they're not going to allow people to clump them all into the city, and it'll create a really spread out opportunity. And I think the idea here is to make sure that people have good access to medicine. And they've really thought it out well.
Very cool, man. Very cool. Well, Ohio is just one of those states that I feel like you don't hear enough about. and then you see things like that drop in the news cycle, and you're like, oh wait, whoa, what's going on over there? So that's really cool that you guys are there and clearly moving the needle. Okay, so here's one from Michael Edwards. Does BAMM see themselves having more than the existing 4 dispensaries by the end of this year?
That's quite the forward-looking statement, but I would like to see us have more than 4 dispensaries, certainly.
Awesome, that's great. One last one I think we can squeeze in here from RC. Any acquisitions in the works? Talk about forward-looking statements. Are you looking in any certain areas? Well, maybe the better way to frame this, Mike, is, what would the ideal acquisition look like for you, or partnership, let's say, if there was such a thing? And obviously, if you want to tell us if there are conversations happening, that would be interesting.
Well, I think that every cannabis company, and we've heard this all day from, both people on the fund side and also people on the company side, cannabis companies are talking to other cannabis companies. Individual dispensaries are talking to groups like ours because, maybe they want an exit, maybe they want, maybe they want to be part of a larger company going forward. So absolutely, we have those conversations multiple times every day. And this is a really exciting time to be in the business. And I think that having made it through a challenging year, really, in 2019, the companies that are here have come out much stronger, and I think really ready to move to the next level here.
Well, that's awesome, man. And I really appreciate you being here. I said this in the last conference that I saw you at, but now I can say it officially. October 13th and 14th is ideally when I'll see you in person in New York City, and you'll be the first guy that I buy a drink for.
Oh, I can't wait. Yeah, I can't wait.
Michael's been around for the entire history of these conferences, and it's always good to see you, man. So thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Really appreciate it. Have a good one. Thanks very much, Patrick.
Take care.